tonight's speaker his name is Father Aaron. He's our canon theologian for the diocese. And when Father, you want the class? I got to do the full introduction. I got to hype him up. Okay. When Father Stan retires, he will be the new rector here at St. Timothy's. I guess this is the first time you've done a youth thing with us, right? All right. Well, here's Father Aaron. Come on in.
Thank you. It's good to be with you. You might ask yourself, what did he say? A canon what? A canon theologian, what is that? A friend of mine who also is a canon theologian in the UK, when he moved to a new church, his son was about 6 years old. And one of the women in the church asked him, says, "Who's your dad?" And he says, "He's over there. He's the canon theologian." And the woman said, "That sounds serious. What does a canon theologian do?" And the little boy says, "Nobody knows." It is an honor to be with you and to welcome you to your cathedral. I am serving here happily and eager to see all that God is going to do in and through this place in the years to come. A few things about me. I'm not funny. I don't know what a meme even is. You might wonder, what's this guy going to say to us? Well, what I get to do as a canon theologian is pretty simple. I get to help people live life in light of the good news concerning Jesus, a crucified and resurrected king. He's a king. And he is the very source of everything good. And so tonight, we're going to look at something extremely important. It's Jesus' declaration that he is the resurrection, he is the life. He in himself is life, the very source of it. So he has life in himself. We only have life because we're related to him. We depend upon him in a pretty radical way. So I'm going to begin with a true confession, if you like. I don't do well with plants. Does anybody else in the room identify with that? Okay, plants and I do not get along. A while ago, somebody gave me a precious gift. They gave me a succulent. Does anybody know what a succulent is? Right? They're wonderful. If you're not familiar, a succulent is basically the world's easiest plant to take care of. You don't have to water it very often at all. It can survive in the desert. In fact, if NASA had astronauts take one of these to the moon, it just might survive. But I killed mine. I'm serious. I forgot to water it for weeks. And then I panicked, and when I panicked, I grabbed water and I dumped way too much water into it as if I could bring it back to life. With guilt and effort, I was going to bring this thing, I was going to resuscitate this poor little succulent. The thing died because it didn't stand a chance. It drowned. And looking back, I realized that I was treating this succulent, this gift, I wasn't treating it like something that had life. Okay? I was treating it as like an ornament or a decoration that I could simply ignore. Until it was so far gone, there was nothing I could do to restore what I had lost. And I think, again, this is confession time. I think it's important to be honest about how I can often treat my own life with God in the very same way. I forget that I was created for communion with him, to be with him, to depend upon him, to be eager to receive his word and power, a real relationship. I can often let fear, shame, distraction, and busyness dry out my soul. All of these things keep me away from the very source of life himself. Remember, he is life in himself. We only have life because we're related to him and we receive it from him. And then when I realize something's wrong, maybe you can identify with me here. You realize something's wrong, and then I try to fix it on my own, frantically and out of fear. Like maybe I can resuscitate what I have neglected. But here's the good news. It's not up to you. It's not up to me. Jesus cares more about you than you care about yourself. And he doesn't just come to resuscitate us. He comes as the great provider of life in order to resurrect us. Resurrect us from our dead state without him. And that's what John 11 is all about. And I understand you're going to study it later, right? Well, it's a very long passage. It's 44 verses. I don't know what they're going to do with you to study it. But the punchline is Jesus' statement. I am the resurrection and the life. So I'm just going to rehearse the story for you rather than reading an extremely long passage. Is that all right? The setting. The story takes place in a town called Bethany, where a man named Lazarus, the brother of Mary and Martha, becomes seriously ill. His sisters, knowing that he's near death, send for Jesus. Why? They want him to come because they know he can heal their brother. But then there's conflict here. There's tension. Though Jesus loves Lazarus and his sisters, he delays going to them. By the time he arrives, Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. Martha greets Jesus, expressing both faith in him and disappointment. She didn't get from Jesus what she expected to receive. Does that sound familiar? But he knew best. She says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And Jesus responds, I am the resurrection and the life. Do you believe this? That's what he asked her. And that's what he asks each one of us every moment of every day. Do you believe me? Martha affirms her belief that Jesus is God's son, sent to bring life to the world. She knows this, but she thinks it's something that's going to come way in the future. Now, things escalate. Jesus goes to the tomb with Mary, who is weeping, you see. Seeing her grief and sorrow and the sorrow of the crowd, what does Jesus do? This is the Bible's shortest verse. Do you know what it says? Jesus wept. He is not unaware of our pain. He's not one who doesn't understand what we're going through. He is fully God, but he is fully human. He knows pain. He knows loss. Jesus wept. He doesn't stand afar from your problems, your concerns, and your questions. He's closer to you than you are to yourself. He weeps with us. Some wonder why he didn't prevent Lazarus' death. They do not yet understand that Jesus is about to reveal something important. He's about to reveal God's power over death and his mission to rescue people from sin. Now, sin, that's a funny word we throw around. What is it? Sin, very basically, listen closely, this is important. Sin is the foolishness of saying no to the gift that God is seeking to give you. It's saying no to his love. Saying no to his grace, the gift. It's saying no to every good thing he wants to put in your life. Now that seems pretty foolish, doesn't it? That's the very core of sin. That's what we mean. It's basically saying no to the very source of life himself and seeking to do things our own way. And the consequences of sin, Scripture tells us, is what? Death. But this story comes to a climax. Jesus has declared who he is. And Jesus commands the stone where Lazarus is buried to be rolled away. And he prays out loud. He says, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I thank you that they may believe that you sent me." And then he calls out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." A word of power. Think of Genesis 1. How does God bring things into being? How does he bring things to life? He speaks. That's how effortless it is. No effort at all. He calls out, and Lazarus, he comes out alive. And so the story ends with amazement. Amazement and belief that starts to spread among the witnesses there. And God's word and spirit have brought new life in that place. Why? Because that's where Jesus is. And to be near Jesus is to be near the very source of life himself. And many believed, it says, that Jesus was the one. He was the one who was to come. He was the one who was going to rescue God's people and rule over the last enemy, death itself, and defeat death. But of course, the story's going to go on. The religious leaders don't like this. They're jealous, angry, and they began to plan his death. They were going to kill him. All right, so what's going on here? The big point is that Jesus destroyed the power of death. He eliminates it. Where life is, death can't be. And Jesus is resurrection. He is life. He delivers. And all those who fear death are subject no longer to that kind of slavery, to that kind of fear that can cripple us. So we no longer live under the tyranny of death. That's the big point. Death doesn't have the last word because Jesus has conquered the grave. He was crucified for you, yet raised from the dead. In the very life that he has as resurrected king is a life he gives, he shares with you, with me, with his church. And we can face suffering. We can face getting old. We can face even physical death with courage, peace, and hope, knowing death is not the end. There are three things I want to quickly point out, okay? quickly point out 3 things that I think might help you to kind of live in light of what we're studying here. We have to pay attention to how we often live in the tomb, but we're supposed to live in him, secondly. And third, life brings change. Okay, so life in the tomb, life with him, life brings change. Okay, very quickly. We are resurrection people. The Apostle Paul in his letters says that Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ will come again. And he says, because of that, if you belong to him, like wrap your imagination around this. If you belong to him, everything that's true of Jesus' death and everything that's true of his resurrection is true of you right now. Right now. You have died with him. That means you don't have to fear death. That's what's most real. And you have been raised with him. So that right now, even though things are not yet the way they're supposed to be, we can enjoy the life abundant that he provides. But we often live the tomb. You probably know a scenario all too well. You set your alarm early for the morning. Maybe for something exciting, a party, a sporting event, or just a day that you want to start fresh, right? You go to bed thinking tomorrow's going to be different. I'm ready for this. I'm eager to wake up. And then, if you're like my daughters, the alarm goes off, and what do? You hit the snooze. Then you hit it again. And you might hit it again. And eventually you either sleep through it or you get up hours later thinking, I knew what I was supposed to do, so why didn't I do it? That's exactly the kind of tension that we experience here in John chapter 11. Jesus stands at the tomb of his friend Lazarus and says something amazing, something that changes everything. He says, I am the resurrection. I am the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. He's not just saying Lazarus will rise someday. He's saying life itself, life's source, is standing right here, right now. Resurrection isn't just coming someday. Jesus says, I am the resurrection. It stands in our midst. He's here. But here's the problem. Even though Jesus offers life now, we often still live like we're in the tomb. Like Martha, we believe Jesus' resurrection's for later. But we don't trust his power for today. Like the mourners, we grieve and live as if love is powerless in the face of death. And like Lazarus himself, we can still be wrapped in grave clothes, bound up by fear, shame, insecurity, sin, etc. We know the truth. Jesus is life himself. But we struggle to live in the light of that truth. It's like we've been called out of the grave, but we keep hitting snooze. Life in the tomb is something we know all too well. What do? Well, how do we respond? We consider what life with him might be like. Yes, Jesus weeps with us. He knows our pain. He knows our loss. But Jesus doesn't just comfort us. though he does that, he calls us to live differently. He calls us to live in dependence upon the abundant life he wants to provide. Jesus doesn't just show up at Lazarus' grave to say, it's going to be okay one day. He calls him out with a word of power. And he does the same for you and for me. Imagine you're stuck in a cave. You're trapped and scared. Has anybody been caving before? No? Okay. Someday. All right, so really try to imagine you're caving and you get stuck. You're trapped and scared. And then a person shouts down, "You'll get out eventually." Thanks. Yet another person might climb in with a flashlight. They reach in, they grab a hold of you, and they pull you up and out of where you're stuck. See, Jesus isn't saying, hey, eventually. He dives in and he says, no, right now. Right now. And it's more than that because, you see, left to ourselves, we're dead. Dead people don't choose life. Dead people need a miracle. Dead people need not resuscitation. Dead people need resurrection. That's what's going on here. He doesn't leave us in our stuckness. He says, come out and follow me. He doesn't just want us to believe in resurrection. He wants us to live as a resurrected people. That's who you are if you belong to Jesus. That's what's available to you. Right now. Right here. So what does this look like? It starts by reorienting our lives around the presence of the risen Christ. Now you might say, well, where is he? I don't see him. Where do you find the presence of the risen Christ? You can find him in every moment of every day. It means recognizing that every part of life, worship, prayer, study, friendship, even your grief and struggles, is meant to be lived with him. Not just about him, it's meant to be lived with him. In dynamic conversation and dependence. And this is hard. We live in a time, much like many other times in history, where distractions are plentiful. Instead of copying, instead of following him, we often copy the patterns of fear and distraction and control that we see all around us, that we're tempted to pursue. Yet Jesus invites us into something deeper here. And it's communion. To be embraced by the very source of life himself is what he's calling you to receive. Communion. Now, I say communion. Now I ask you, with that word in mind, where's the most intense place to find the risen Christ? Oh, good. Who said that? Yeah, good. Church. Can you be more specific? The altar. Who said that? Yeah, same thing. Theologian, Canon theologian of the future. The Holy Eucharist. The Holy Eucharist is not some added strange ritual that you can kind of take or leave. This is real. It's in and through Holy Eucharist that we have the most intense encounter with the risen Christ, and to receive in the most powerful sort of way the life that he intends to give. And in and through this liturgy, we find the pattern of life we're called to follow in. To receive, to respond, and then to return again, over and over and over. This is the very source of life itself. He invites us to receive life as gift and return it in thanksgiving, to make our whole lives lives of worship. Worship, if you just hit the pause button here. So when I say worship, I don't mean simply singing songs. I'm talking about a whole life lived. You worship a lot, you're tempted to worship a lot of things. Worship is when you orient your life around attaining something, okay? Whatever it might be. The call here is to orient our entire life around receiving him. Show up to church expecting to encounter him. We weep with those who weep, but we also speak hope into dark places. Speak, and he will be there. We help to unbind others, calling out their worth. Call out one another's worth. Celebrate one another's gifts. As you love one another, Jesus is manifest. He comes in ways that might even surprise us. No strings attached. What I'm talking about here is not a denial of pain. It's not a denial of death. It's not a denial of loss. What I'm talking about here is a life that's in defiance, really, rebellion. Y'all are young, you should like rebellious defiance of death's finality. We defy death. We rebel against death. We don't act foolishly, but we have nothing to fear because we're in the safest place we could possibly be. Ultimately, we are in his hands, embraced by his arms. Jesus is alive, and that changes everything right now. So we have to be realistic about life in the tomb. We have to respond in pursuit of life with him. Last thing, very briefly, this life brings change. A friend of mine here at St. Timothy's, there's a lot going on right now. There's change happening, let alone the fact that Father Stan is retiring. There's a lot of other stuff changing too. And a friend of mine says, there are two things that people hate. The first is change. And the second is the way things are. Think about that for a minute. You might think change. Change into what? Well, good stuff. To have more of Jesus is to bring out more of you. He wants you to flourish. And I find it shocking how few people in the church actually believe that. Do you believe that Jesus wants you to flourish as a human being? Do you believe that? Do you think he's holding back on you? Do you think he's going to shortchange you? Do you think he's deceiving you in some way? No. He wants you to flourish. He cares more about you than you care about yourself. That's the depth of his love for you. And he's saying, come to me. Be near me. Follow me. Because when we live as resurrection people, everything begins to change. When we respond to Jesus in this way, when we live as if he is in fact the resurrection and the life, God begins to produce something extraordinary in and through you. Not just in the future, but right now. It's available to you right now. Worship becomes more than just singing songs. It becomes a real encounter with the living Jesus. We begin to see the world, not through fear and scarcity, but as God's gift. His unearned, undeserved favor toward you. We become people of thanksgiving. And something amazing happens. The church starts to look like what it truly is. A preview of the fullness of resurrection. Now, I don't know. Do we have any moviegoers here? See, this is not so strange to me. When I was a kid, like, every Friday, right? Movies, great. Go to the movies. What's the one reason you would get to the movie early? Previews. What do you view when you see a preview? What's that? Yeah. So a preview does what? It's actually the real film, right? It's clips from the actual film, right? So it's the real thing. Why do they want to show you a snapshot of the real film? Yeah, it's meant to, you're right to call it an advertisement. It's meant to entice you. That's right. So it's enticing you to want to see the whole film, right? That's what we're called to be together as the church. We are a preview of all of the goodness, all the beauty, all the truth that will come in fullness when Jesus returns to set all things right. Right now, we live as a preview for the sake of the world. Previewing the real thing. This is really the life of Christ manifest in and through the ways we love one another. And as the watching world looks upon us, upon our preview, it's the real thing, but it entices people to want to become part of what is coming in full when Jesus returns. We're called to this life together. He cares more about you than you care about yourself. He is life itself, and to have him is to have everything you need. When we walk with him, the fire of his life spreads. Just like a campfire, catching and growing log to log. And the world, which is so used to seeing fear, it finally sees a different way of being human together. Set aflame by hope, grounded in Jesus, and full of a love stronger than even death. So here's the big question. Are you still snoozing in the tomb? Or are you stepping into the life Jesus offers you right now? He is the resurrection. He is the life. Because he's calling your name, you have every reason to run to him. And the word of his voice is stronger than even death. So back to my shriveled, poor little succulent. I'm not a good gardener, but I'm starting to understand what real life needs. Not panic watering, not performing, not perfection, just presence. What that little plant never had was consistent daily care. And what we often miss in our walk with Jesus is the very same thing. He's not looking for more activity. He's not looking for more, from you. He wants more of you. He wants communion. He's not telling you do more. He's actually saying receive more. Open heart. More of him. He is life. He is its source. He is the giver. And to have the giver is to have the gift in full. If you want the gift without the giver, you get nothing. So the point is to draw near to him. You were made to live with God. Not just for him, but with him. You were made for resurrection life, here and now. Not a dried out, shriveled up life of survival. Not a panic-driven, last-minute catch-up life. But a life of being with Jesus. Because he is the resurrection, he is the life. And unlike me, with that succulent, he never forgets to provide what you most need. And he never forgets to protect what he loves, and that's you. Amen. Thanks for having me.